You're standing in a place that feels completely empty. No trees, no cities, no distant engine noise, just endless white stretching to the horizon. The wind howls, the temperature is far below zero, and nothing about this landscape feels survivable. And yet, you're not alone. Moving silently across the frozen tundra is a predator perfectly adapted to this environment. White fur blending into snow, footsteps so light they barely leave a trace. This isn't a legend. It's the Arctic wolf, the ghost of the tundra. Unlike most large predators on Earth, Arctic wolves don't fear humans. Not because they're aggressive, but because humans were never part of their world. For thousands of years, there were no villages, no weapons, no hunters. Just ice, wind, and scarcity. These wolves live where survival itself is the challenge, where prey can vanish for weeks, where cold can kill exposed skin in minutes, and somehow they endure. How does a mammal survive in a place that looks lifeless? How can a predator go weeks without food? And what kind of animal becomes so isolated that humans feel like intruders? To understand the Arctic wolf, we must understand the world that shaped it. At first glance, the Arctic wolf looks just like any other white wolf. But up close, everything about it is different. Evolution didn't just give it a thicker coat, it redesigned the whole blueprint for survival. Start with the feet. Arctic wolves walk on snow the same way we walk on solid ground. Their paws are massive, like built-in snowshoes, spreading their weight over a wider area to prevent sinking. Underneath, the paw pads are covered in a layer of fur, acting like insulation and traction at the same time. Their ears are shorter than those of other wolves, reducing surface area and limiting heat loss. Their muzzle is stockier. Their fur isn't just thick, it's layered. A dense undercoat traps heat, while the longer outer hairs repel snow and wind. Even their eyes are specialized, set slightly deeper to reduce exposure and shield against biting wind. They don't just blend into snow, they vanish in it. The camouflage is so effective that even biologists can lose track of them just a few feet away. And perhaps the strangest part? Arctic wolves don't hibernate. They don't migrate. They don't flee when winter hits, because winter is all they've ever known. They're not visitors in this cold. They were built for it. In the Arctic, starvation isn't an exception. It's the default state. For Arctic wolves, eating every day is a luxury they almost never have. Weeks can pass without a single successful hunt, and when that happens, survival becomes a test of biology as much as skill. Unlike wolves in forests or grasslands, Arctic wolves don't have a steady menu. There are no deer herds passing through, no small animals hiding in dense vegetation. Most of the time, their prey is limited to musk, oxen, Arctic hares, seals, or the occasional caribou animals that are themselves built to survive extreme cold and scarcity. So when food disappears, Arctic wolves don't panic. Their bodies slow down. Their metabolism drops, conserving energy in ways that would be impossible for animals in warmer climates. Fat reserves built during rare successful hunts are burned slowly and efficiently. Heart rate lowers, activity drops, every movement becomes calculated, no wasted chases, no unnecessary fights. Pack behavior becomes critical here. Arctic wolves live in smaller packs than their southern relatives, often just a breeding pair and a few offspring. This reduces competition for food and allows them to cover massive distances without exhausting resources. When they do hunt, coordination matters more than speed. Musk oxen are enormous, armored animals that form defensive circles, and breaking through one requires patience, positioning, and endurance rather than brute force. Failure is common. Many hunts end without a kill. Wolves may follow prey for days, waiting for weakness, exhaustion, or separation. When nothing works, they retreat, not out of fear, but strategy. Staying alive is more important than winning. What makes this even more brutal is the cold itself. Hunger and freezing temperatures stack together. A starving body produces less heat, meaning wolves must constantly balance the need to move with the risk of burning precious energy. Sometimes the smartest decision is to lie still, sheltering behind rocks or ice ridges, waiting days for a better opportunity. This is why Arctic wolves aren't reckless predators. They're endurance specialists, built not to dominate through constant killing, but to survive long stretches of failure. In a land where most hunts end in nothing, endurance decides everything. Most wild animals avoid humans. Some flee at the first scent. Others vanish at the sound of footsteps. But Arctic wolves? They don't run. Not because they're hostile, but because they're curious. Arctic wolves are the only subspecies of wolf that rarely fears humans. In fact, in some remote parts of the Arctic, they've been known to approach researchers and campsites not as a threat, but as if to investigate a strange visitor in their icy kingdom. This strange behavior isn't boldness, it's isolation. Arctic wolves evolved in a world completely cut off from human civilization. They live farther north than almost any other land predator on Earth. No towns, no fences, no poachers. For thousands of years, they've had no reason to associate humans with danger. This isolation isn't just about distance, it's about time. Human presence in the high Arctic is still rare today, and before modern technology, it was almost non-existent. That means generation after generation of Arctic wolves lived and died without ever encountering a human being. Their pack dynamics also reinforce this calm. Arctic wolves are tightly bonded and highly cooperative. With such a small group, often just 5 to 7 wolves, they depend on each other, not just for hunting, but for warmth, protection, and emotional stability. In places where nature is brutal, trust within the pack becomes a survival trait. They aren't aggressive toward intruders because they don't need to be. Their world is too vast and too cold for outsiders to last long. Predators don't need to defend territory that nobody else can reach. But this doesn't mean Arctic wolves are tame. They are still wild predators with sharp instincts and powerful jaws. They'll stalk prey in silence, coordinate flanking attacks, and bring down animals many times their size. But when it comes to humans, their reaction is often more confusion than hostility. In a way, we're not enemies, we're just anomalies. And if one ever does appear near you, it's not a threat, it's a rare glimpse into a world where humans never mattered. A moment when the ghost of the tundra decides to step out of the snow just long enough to see what we are. For a predator so mysterious, so adapted to isolation, you'd think the Arctic wolf would be safe from the problems facing the rest of the animal kingdom. But even here, in one of the most remote places on Earth, change is catching up. Climate change is melting the very ground Arctic wolves depend on. Permafrost is thawing, ice patterns are shifting, prey migrations are becoming unpredictable, and the once inaccessible reaches of the tundra are no longer completely untouched. Warmer temperatures mean less snow cover. Less snow means fewer places to hide. Prey species become exposed, disrupted, or vanish altogether. Arctic hares and lemmings don't breed the way they used to. Caribou routes shift with changing ice conditions, and without consistent food, Arctic wolf populations start to thin. But climate isn't the only threat. As ice recedes and global interests move further north, human activity follows. Mining, drilling, and exploration inch into the wolf's habitat. Noise, light, and pollution begin to chip away at the silence that once defined this landscape. The ghost of the tundra is slowly being dragged into the modern world. And unlike wolves in forests or mountains, Arctic wolves don't adapt well to human interference. Their entire survival strategy depends on distance from danger, from competition, from disruption. When that distance collapses, so does their advantage. What's most tragic is how little we know. Arctic wolves are still some of the least studied predators on Earth. We don't even have precise population estimates. Much of what we understand comes from fleeting encounters, scattered tracks, or the rare tagged pack. Their world is so vast, so harsh, that even our best tools can't keep up with them. Maybe that's fitting. They've always been hard to track, harder to tame, and nearly impossible to understand. But in a warming world, mystery isn't protection. If their environment collapses, no amount of camouflage or endurance will save them. The Arctic wolf isn't just a predator, it's a living relic, a phantom of a colder, quieter Earth. And unless we preserve the tundra it calls home, we won't just lose a species, we'll lose one of the last truly wild things on the planet. So if this ghost disappears, it won't be because it failed to adapt. It will be because the world failed to leave it alone. If you want more deep dives into nature's strangest survivors, consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed this story, leave a like. It helps the channel reach more curious minds.